The price that the public pays is that we have this Chinese-style surveillance technology now across the country. And that means we are all at risk of being tracked and watched by the state.
Hello and welcome to Spectator TV. I'm John Connolly, the Spectator's news editor, and we're talking today to Silkie Carlo, the director of Big Brother Watch, about the disturbing rise of facial recognition technology in the UK. Silkie, thank you for joining us on Spectator TV. You write in the magazine this week about the rollout of facial recognition technology, especially in supermarkets. I think a lot of people watching this might be quite surprised to see how far this technology has sort of come on and how much it's being implemented. To start off, so can you tell us a bit about how it's being used in particular in supermarkets, which you write about?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that has happened relatively quietly over recent years, since around 2020, where a number of supermarkets and retailers have started using facial recognition cameras as kind of identity checkpoints at their doorways. The aim is to stop shoplifting and abuse of shop staff, which obviously we would all support. But it's quite a draconian measure because this is a privately run database. It's populated with images that are taken from CCTV, and you wouldn't be told if your image was on the watch list. So you could suddenly find yourself basically technologically blacklisted from your high street because a security guard had a hunch that you were someone who shouldn't be in the store. I
mean, it's got a wonderfully sinister name, Face Watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it does what it says on the tin. Yeah.
And I think it's probably worth making clear that you write in the piece that there are people who are essentially innocent, who didn't do who haven't been shoplifting, who have been blacklisted from shops. Can you tell us a bit about them and how that's impacted them?
Yeah, I mean, what's particularly interesting about this whole system is it's distinctly non-police, and FaceWatch, the company that operates it, says we don't share images with the police, which if it were acting in the public interest, you think, well, probably that they should, and if they were serious offenders that they should. But actually that means that unlike I think what we're all used to, that if you have a repeat offender, and security staff will tell you they know who the people are that offend in their stores. There used to be things like spotter cards that security guards would have to pick out the people they knew were the bad guys, so to speak. This is completely different. This is a regional database of people who haven't been convicted, haven't even been reported to police, that security guards have suspicions about.
There's a woman in particular called in the piece called Anna. I don't think that's her real name. Can you tell us a bit about her? Yeah,
this is a really distressing case. Her children came forward to us a few months ago after she went out shopping with her children. They take her out. She's an older lady in ill health, and she was walking around a store when she was accosted by staff who said, "You need to leave now. You're banned." She was completely confused, and they pointed her to a sign on the door saying FaceWatch is in operation here. A lot of people that we speak to who have been through this kind of stop there. You know, they're terribly confused, upset, start to question themselves, and then worry about going to that shop again or going to other shops. Her children, as I would if it were my mum, were really angry about this and resourceful. So they came forward to us. We helped them do legal requests to the company to say, why have you banned this woman? And it turned out that a security guard believed that she had failed to pay for an item worth £1.
Wow.
£1, and as a result had added her to this watch list and defended adding her to the watch list and defended the fact that now she will be automatically flagged when she goes into that store and other stores using this system within a wide geographical region. When we asked the shop, do you have any evidence of this alleged incident? They said no. And the woman said, and her children said, that's because it didn't happen. And certainly she's got a clean record. She's never shoplifted before.
I think that's maybe one of the most disturbing things about this, which is that on the one hand, you've got this sort of quite sophisticated technology that can therefore scan your face and bar you from shops around the country. But at the end of the day, it's still a human being, a security guard pressing a button, and human error can presumably come into that.
It certainly does. And also automated error comes into it as well, because another case, and several of the cases that we've worked on, are where somebody has wrongly flagged as somebody else who was on the system. But as a result, they are publicly humiliated. We've had people contact us who went into the shop with colleagues. Now, can you imagine? You go into a shop with a colleague and you're told by security staff, no, you're on our watch list, you're banned, you're a shoplifter. That could really jeopardise, and in that case did have serious implications for that person's career. So this is really serious, and I think this really gets to the heart of it. With the expansion of facial recognition in this country, we are losing a lot of very fundamental values and principles around justice, fairness, privacy. This turns our expectations of justice on their head, really. There is no trial. There doesn't need to be any evidence. But there's this automated private punishment that's very pervasive.
I mean, Silkie, the other side of this, which is I think a lot of people watching will know that shoplifting has become a huge issue in this country.
Yes.
And I know people who say every time they go into their local co-op, there's someone shoplifting there. The police aren't really that interested in clamping down on it. It obviously has knock-on social effects that are a big problem. I think they may be listening to this would have a lot of sympathy for people inadvertently caught up in that, but also have a lot of sympathy for the supermarkets themselves, who say, what tools do they actually have to stop shoplifters? Do you have any sympathy with that position?
I absolutely recognise shoplifting is a big problem in this country, and a growing problem, and also bizarrely the increase in abuse and violence that's happening in shops. I mean, what's happening to our social fabric? Really big problems, and I think it speaks to something, a wider issue that we have with the criminal justice system. That, as you say, the police aren't interested. The police don't attend. Even where violent suspects are apprehended, police are not attending the scene of violent crimes happening in shops. So you can quite understand why shop owners, especially small business owners, are upset by this. I have slightly less sympathy, I have to say, for the big supermarkets who are now making us check out our own shopping. Certainly any viewers in London will know that a lot of our supermarkets now have self-checkouts with directed cameras and screens broadcasting your purchases as a kind of self-surveillance system, and it's all getting a bit much. But certainly for small business owners and all businesses, this is a big problem. But we can't fix it by becoming a dystopian surveillance state. First of all, it doesn't work, because all that happens is shoplifters are being moved on to other areas. They're still not being prosecuted. And that's really the problem. And that even where police do attend, people often aren't prosecuted. Where they are prosecuted, they get short sentences and bounce in and out of jails and become even... have more difficult lives in jail because of the problems that we've got there. I mean, really, it's a very curious symptom of a very big problem we have in this country with a broken criminal justice system. But the idea that the price that the public is going to pay at large is that we now need passport-style checks to go shopping, surely isn't the solution.
I suppose we could talk a bit more generally as well about, it's not just supermarkets that this facial recognition technology is being used, is it?
No.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, and it's not just supermarkets, even in the retail sector, Sports Direct, Flannels, Home Bargains, these large shops use live facial recognition on a private basis. But it's also growing massively in law enforcement, or certainly for policing. So we have seen this year in London alone a 1,000% increase in the use of live facial recognition compared to last year. There is not a single act of parliament in this country that has the words facial recognition in it. It's banned across the rest of Europe. It's banned in lots of places in the US. You actually don't see it being used in a democratic world anything like you do here. And again, the way I go to police deployments of live facial recognition to monitor how they use it and the impact that it has. I've been doing that for over 7 years. So I've got a very good picture of how it works. And it doesn't work very well. And what you often see is that police are picking up people who clearly have drug issues, who have had some engagement with the law in the past, and the police have a chat with them check, are they abiding by conditions if they have certain conditions. You just kind of get the sense that people are being bounced around. But the price that the public pays is that we have this Chinese style surveillance technology now across the country. And that means we are all at risk of being tracked and watched by the state in a way that we never have done before, that would never have been acceptable before. We're a country that rejected ID cards. We don't like to be watched or stopped by police unless we've done something wrong. The other massive failure point with this kind of intrusive mass surveillance is that there will always be errors. And so I have repeatedly seen people stopped by police and interrogated, threatened with arrest because they looked like someone else who was on a watch list.
I was going to say, before your piece was commissioned, we were talking about this in the office, and I mentioned the fact that I've probably been picked up on a lot of facial recognition because I think it's been rolled out at Euston Station, which is what I use a lot, and as well as, I think, Waterloo. So I got in touch with Network Rail and said, what kind of data do you have on me? I think it was passed to an Amazon service called Recognition and processed that way. But they kind of got back to me and said, well, it's all anonymous. We actually don't know if it's your data or not. We basically turned images of you into sort of data points and send that off to be analysed. And they kind of said, we're only using this technology for sort of monitoring about people maybe trespassing on the lines, people trying to evading fares and that kind of thing. When it's anonymised in that way, do you kind of have as many concerns with it, or do you think that maybe there's some good that can come off this kind of technology?
Sorry to interrupt the show, but if you enjoy what we do here at Spectator TV, then why not subscribe to the magazine as well? If you subscribe today, you get 12 weeks for just £12, plus a free £20 John Lewis and Waitrose gift card. You can sign up at spectator.co.uk/TV offer.
Yeah, so there are AI cameras now that have been trialled at some train stations, exactly as you say, and this kind of often used for kind of behaviour recognition, anomaly detection. This kind of language is used. It's kind of very sci-fi. But there are different concerns, and I'm certainly less concerned about it than I am with facial recognition, although often they come together because surveillance is kind of stackable in that way. Well, if you can have this kind of AI recognising someone's behaviour, why not recognise their face? Why not recognise their gait, the way that they walk? It's all ways of identifying people more completely and watching what they're doing. We have to be really careful about it. I mean, also, it does mean that people who behave outside of the norm are at constant risk of being flagged. And that could be somebody who's got mental health problems or developmental disabilities, for example. But there are lots of different reasons. It could be someone just behaves differently. And my God, are we becoming a society where we want to normalise everyone like a herd and say, if you look any different to anyone else, you'll be flagged by our anomaly detection system at somewhere like a train station where millions of people go through every day. It's the definition of a slippery slope. But actually, that was a Network Rail trial. The police the Metropolitan Police in their latest live facial recognition documents have said that they are, certainly believe they have the right to integrate this into CCTV networks.
Right.
And that would include places like train stations. So just to be clear for people on what that means, we have around 6 million surveillance cameras in this country. The surveillance camera to human being ratio is the same as China.
Wow.
We are one of the most surveilled nations in the world. If we integrate facial recognition into our CCTV systems, we live in a different country. We have the possibility of being permanently tracked by the state and records built about us that could be accessed later. It's beyond dystopian. And all of this is happening by, I'm sure, some well-intended people in police forces, but the political guidance and the safeguards are just not there. There still hasn't even been a proper debate in Parliament about facial recognition, let alone any legislation.
I wanted to ask about the political side. I mean, what sense do you get is the current Labour government's own interest in these kind of issues? Do you feel like they've got a good record on it?
Well, I don't think this is going to be a Labour government that champions civil liberties by all indications so far, but that's what we've got to try and change now in the next few months. Before this kind of pattern sets in, because one thing that we were really worried about was that in the summer, Keir Starmer made an announcement where he very casually endorsed a wider use of facial recognition technology.
Is this during the riots?
The context was the riots, and the riots are some of the most heinous scenes I think many people in our generation have ever seen. I mean, we've never seen that kind of interpersonal violence play out in that way, and racist attacks. Very, very, very shocking. Clearly, the police needed powers and political endorsement to take really strong action. But we all know that in the heat of crisis, it's not a good time to introduce sweeping measures that will last much longer than the crisis. And so ushering in something like facial recognition, if anyone would support it on the basis that it will get a few bad people who behaved badly in those weeks, but it won't ever come for them, that would be very naive. This has very, very wide-scale implications for the entire population.
And before we finish, I just want to check, what sort of protections do individuals have here? Because, I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago that we were passing the GDPR legislation, which supposedly had very strong sort of stipulations about data protection, possibly some that go even too far. But now there doesn't seem to be sort of any protections at all. Is that the case?
Well, you're right in theory, and we made that case. We did a Big Brother Watch. We did a long legal complaint to the Information Commissioner, who is the data watchdog in the UK, to raise the alarm about live facial recognition in retail. Not only that, but also that there are now facial recognition search engines. Like, I could search your face and pull up your history and see...
Dreadful idea.
You can see everywhere that someone has been, what they've done, who they hang out with, their past. We know that university admissions offices have used this. It's very intrusive stuff. Also, stalkers use it. I mean, this technology is so powerful, it clearly needs to be regulated. But our view is also that it's very clearly already against the law. And that's why I say in Europe, which has the same data laws, GDPR, as you say, supermarkets have been fined millions of euros for trying to use facial recognition. You just can't do it. Here, our regulator has taken a very different approach, and I do think fell on the bad side of political influence, because the last government was saying we really need to do something about shoplifting, and here's something that they can do, rather than sort out the criminal justice crisis that we have. So in the case of, for example, the lady I call Anna in the piece, we want to take legal action for her. She wants to take legal action. Because it's a private company, you can't, the cost implications are massive. We could be looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds. And that's the conundrum I'm currently trying to solve, because unless we bring a test case, unless we actually apply the law in cases like this will change the shape of the country that we live in.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Silkie.
Thanks.